Good morning and welcome to the Bill and Kelly Show. Today, our guest is Andrea Pauls Backman, who is the CEO of the Les Turner ALS Foundation. Good morning and welcome to our show, Andrea.
Good morning, Bill. How are you today?
Oh, great, great. It's a nice, crisp morning. Can't wait for the Chicago weather to warm up a bit around here. But I can't tell you how appreciative we are of you coming back on our show. You were on our show about 2 years ago. And just so people know the connection, we do have something in common. My father passed from ALS. And was it your mother who passed from ALS?
Yes, I lost my mother about 10 years ago.
Mine about 25 years ago, my father. So just so people know the connection and how supportive I am of the Les Turner ALS Foundation, a wonderful organization. So when we start out by letting you tell us a bit more about how the foundation started, a bit about Les Turner, and we'll go from there.
Happy to. The Les Turner ALS Foundation really started literally in someone's living room. Back in the 1970s, there were no ALS organizations that existed in the country. In fact, I'm not sure there were any that existed in the world at that time. And Les Turner was a young man in his 30s, a family man who lived in Glenview, Illinois. He came down with ALS, and he was told by his doctor, basically, go home and get your affairs in order. And his family members felt that that just wasn't sufficient. There had to be something they could do, not just for Les, who lived another year or two with the disease and left a widow and 3 boys when he passed, but also for the hundreds of people in the Chicagoland area and thousands of people around the country that were being diagnosed with this disease. So they decided to begin to fund ALS research. And they formed a foundation, the Les Turner ALS Foundation. We began to fund ALS research at Northwestern University starting in 1979. So we have continuously funded ALS research for over 40 years. We're still the same organization. We're a little bigger right now. There are about 18 of us on staff. We cover the 6-county Chicagoland area. And our one little research laboratory or research grant that we made to Northwestern has now become 70 ALS researchers and clinicians. And it's called the Les Turner ALS Center at Northwestern Medicine. And we're a proud partner of Northwestern and happy to raise the money and raise awareness and work with people with ALS to find a cure for this disease.
Yeah, and actually, I had the benefit of meeting some of those researchers, and a lot of them were brought on after the Ice Bucket Challenge, because I remember that rose quite a bit of money and awareness of ALS. And so I actually got to meet some of them at the Walk for Life, which was very interesting. So, and that's something else that people don't understand, even though Les Turner ALS Foundation is generally around the Chicago area, because of the relationship with Northwestern, a good deal of the national and international research is done out of Northwestern, is it not?
Absolutely. As I said, we've been continually doing ALS research, and the scientists at Northwestern have been continually doing this work since 1979. They collaborate with ALS researchers around the world, not just around the country, but around the world. We're also a founding member of the International Alliance of ALS MND associations. MND stands for motor neuron disease, which is what ALS is called in some countries around the world. And I'm a board member for the International Alliance as well. So we're very involved and working collaboratively with ALS researchers and clinicians globally.
And just to give some more familiarity with the disease, a lot of people refer to this as the Lou Gehrig disease because of the famous baseball player that lost his life to ALS and was diagnosed in it, and it really destroyed a stellar career. And this is someone who played right alongside Babe Ruth. And his famous speech is noted still today, his farewell speech. So I'm now. So let's talk a bit about current day, what's happening, and on several layers. One, how that's affected a foundation like the Les Turner ALS Foundation, its intake and fundraising, and also how it's affected the patients as well.
That's a big question, Bill, and I'm really glad you asked it. So, you and I are talking, it's the beginning of May, second week of May. I think we are 7 weeks into a shelter in place order here in the state of Illinois, per our governor, and many states around the country are in the same position. But we at the Les Turner ALS Foundation started moving our services, pivoting from in person services to virtual services early in March. And the reason is this. We work with several hundred people with ALS at any point in time. I've got a staff of registered nurses and social workers who last year made almost 1,800 individualized visits in people's homes, meeting with them at their clinic appointments, meeting with them if they live in nursing facilities or if they were in hospice. Wherever they are, the Les Turner ALS Foundation is there working with them. So I was concerned about my team being in the homes of people with ALS because, as you know, people with ALS don't necessarily have an immune issue. So it's not necessarily so that they are more likely to contract the coronavirus, but if they get it, they don't have the strength in their lungs to fight it adequately. So before I get into that, can I backtrack a little bit about what ALS does? That might be important to
Sure,
note.
definitely, definitely.
So ALS is a terminal progressive neuromuscular disease. So what that means in layman's terms is that you have motor neurons in your body. The motor neurons tell your muscles to fire. ALS kills the motor neurons. So the muscles don't get the signal to fire. And what that looks like means people who begin to show signs of ALS might begin to trip. They might have weakness in a hand or in a foot or in an arm. They may have slurred speech because the weakness is developing in their throat area, and we call that a bulbar onset ALS. Regardless, ALS slowly kills the motor neurons, so gradually the muscles deteriorate. Individuals lose their ability to walk, they lose their ability to stand, they lose their ability to eat or to speak, and ultimately they lose their ability to breathe. We have no cure for ALS. And generally, people who are diagnosed live with the disease, most typically anywhere from 2 to 5 years.
Yeah, and that's it is a grueling thing that they go through, and one of the things that I remember in our patient doctor meetings that we had monthly with our primary physician for my dad, he kept telling us, regardless of what you think, of what you see, still communicate with him because he's as mentally sharp as the day before he contracted this. And that is one of the things in a lot of other diseases. Sometimes it affects blood chemistry, which then is the chain effect, eventually affects them mental awareness, what's going on. One of the things about ALS, because it is not a blood-borne disease, they're completely aware what's going on. So that's something we were always challenged with in visiting with them every day. We wanted to make sure that we kept the conversations, reading, engagement, even though he couldn't communicate back with us.
There are forms of ALS, unfortunately, that do cause significant cognitive decline, which is really doubly tragic. But generally speaking, ALS does not impact the mind or cognitive abilities. There are, as I said, for a smaller subset of patients, they do experience cognitive impairment as well.
Yeah, it's amazing. So besides the foundation, I talk about some of the fundraisers that the Les Turner Foundation, ALS Foundation, is involved in, usually during this period of time.
So over the course of the year, we have what we call signature events that we have run every year for many, many years. We run the Hope Through Caring Gala, which is a beautiful black tie gala. It was held this year at the end of February. We were very fortunate to be able to hold the gala. It is marvelous for so many reasons. We got about 550 people who came to this beautiful event in downtown Chicago. And more importantly, we had 24 individuals living with ALS who come as our guests. It is a night out for them. They bring a caregiver. They get all dressed up. We take pictures. People are dancing. If you've never seen a power wheelchair on a dance floor with the band going, it is a lot of fun. And we let people know that there is hope for them.
Sorry about that.
That's okay. Speaking of music,
It's part of
but we let people know that there is hope. And individuals with ALS who join us at this event are there. They might be chatting with one of their clinicians who they get to see all dressed up and talking, one of our scientists who all attend this event. It lets people know they're part of a greater community that cares about them and is going to fight for them. So that's a beautiful event. We do hold a Strikeout ALS, which is held at Guaranteed Rate Field. Some of us know it as White Sox Park. Those of us who are native Chicagoans. And that event will be held this July 16th, but it will be held virtually because we will have people with ALS attending this event. And really for anyone, it just is likely not going to be safe to hold a large scale event with 600-700 runners and walkers. We hold, as you mentioned as well, and Bill, when I last saw you, was our ALS Walk for Life, which gets 6,000 to 7,000 people. It's probably the largest ALS gathering in the country. We hold that at Soldier Field every September. And this year, it is likely that event will also be done virtually because, again, we're going to have lots of families who are there, lots of people with ALS. We don't want to take the risk to expose anybody when we know that those with ALS are a vulnerable population.
Yeah, and that is although a necessity, it is a crying shame because that event impacted me immensely. I just being able to interact with other families and the patients there, and being able to tell my dad's story and them appreciating, his story, and then them telling me theirs was highly impactful. I mean, it was something that, and not only that, oh my gosh. In fact, I made this suggestion to the foundation that if ever it gets back, I still suggest it, is we should sell tickets and make it called the Taste of the Les Turner Foundation. The amount of food that every tent brought, it just ethnically diverse and geographically as far as Chicago diverse. It was amazing event. And then the folks get out and walk, and we had a cheerleading section at the end. Oh, just amazing, absolutely amazing event. So, yeah,
it's a wonderful event. I call it a big family reunion.
Mm-hmm.
As you said, you've got people from all over the Chicagoland area. People drive 2-3 hours to come into the walk. And they get there early, they set up their tents, they bring out their food, they've got balloons going and music, and we get a big dance party going at the end. We will do it again. Even if this year will be an outlier, but we will do it again when the world gets back to being a little more normal.
Yeah, I hope so. I hope so because it allowed people to connect, which is important. Let other people know there are other families out there that are going through some of the same things. That was huge, and the friendships that were made. To this day, even though I may have skipped a year, I came back the next year and they were still looking for me. I always volunteered as the person that helped them get to the tent. Crazy times. Well, this has been great, very informative, and one of the things that I do want to talk about is before we go is the impact that ALS patients have had with this constant, because every medical facility is being taxed with the amount of COVID-19 patients, and being that this attacks the respiratory system, which a good number of ALS patients also have respiratory issues. It's the ventilator, and that's when I first heard about the need for ventilators. Because of my dad's history, I thought, oh my gosh, how are people advocating for the ALS patients during all this? So can you speak a bit about that?
I can, and I want to talk a little bit too about what we've done to help people with ALS as soon as COVID-19 struck. But to your question on ventilators, so it's a little bit technical, so I'll keep it rather simple. There are two major types of ventilators. You have invasive ventilation, which is what you think of if you think of somebody with a tracheostomy and they've got a tube in their throat and they need a machine to keep them breathing. So that's an invasive ventilation. And then there's what's called non-invasive ventilation, which the majority of ALS patients will use. It can be a BiPAP machine. They go by different terms. There are different companies that make them. But essentially, it's a little bit like a CPAP machine for people who have sleep apnea, where it goes over your head. There's a mask that goes over your face. You may have a little nasal pillow so that it will push the air into your lungs, and more importantly, it pulls the carbon dioxide out. Because what kills people with ALS, unfortunately, as their diaphragms fail, is they can no longer expel carbon dioxide. And that's what will shut down your body. So non-invasive ventilation is something people with ALS have used for a long time. And in fact, Dr. Lisa Wolf, who is one of the pulmonologists at our Lois and Solia ALS clinic at Northwestern, is one of the early pioneers in using different types of non-invasive ventilation and in fine-tuning that for people with ALS. So one of the things I had heard, interestingly enough, when there was a shortage of ventilators, I think especially in New York and New Jersey, where the virus has hit the area very hard, is they were kind of fine-tuning non-invasive ventilation devices to be used for COVID patients. So I think what we were seeing, at least what we're experiencing for ALS patients, is we're not experiencing necessarily a shortage of ventilators. What we are experiencing, though, are some of the same things that everyone else is dealing with. Job loss, inability to access medical care. So what we did is we formed the COVID-19 Emergency Relief Fund. We had many major donors who stepped up immediately, and we're sending out to the patients that we work with, anyone who has any financial need, we send out a grant. They can use it for groceries, medications. Maybe they want to do a telehealth visit like you and I are doing, a video chat with one of our nurses or social workers or with their doctor at the clinic. Maybe they don't have an electronic device to do it. So we're able to provide them with whatever they need on an emergency basis to get them through this crisis. It's one of the things we do.
Yeah, and one of the many things you do. I mean, if you look at the Les Turner ALS Foundation pamphlet, it goes on, and direct impact is helping families and going all the way up to research, which we probably don't have time today to go over all the resources. But one thing that people do need to know, if they have a patient or a family member or someone that they know who's been recently diagnosed with ALS, the Les Turner ALS Foundation does provide resources for them.
Absolutely. And all of our services are free. So you can go to lesturnерals.org, which is our website. Individuals can also call the office, even though we're all working remotely. Someone will take your call and get back to you. And that number, if you need it, is 847-679-3311. All of our services are still being given, being rendered. We're just doing it a little bit differently. We're adapting to the circumstances. And I like to think that we take our cue from those amazing people with ALS that we get to work with every day. They show resiliency and innovation in the face of crisis. And I will say that during this particular COVID crisis, the people we have seen who are the least anxious about it are those people living with ALS. I mean, think about it. They've been given a very difficult diagnosis. Their lives have been upended, but yet they're resilient. They're hopeful. They're able to cope. And I like to think we take those lessons to heart and we apply them as the rest of us are going through a crisis.
Yeah, another name to throw out there that people may not know that they had ALS, but Stephen Hawking, the world-renowned astrophysicist. And his was a long battle with ALS, probably one of the longer ones I've heard. I don't know if he went into recession or what, but he finally, just a couple of years ago, lost his life. And so, but I mean, he's always, in fact, people are always challenged, I know, that met him, said that he had always, it was like talking to someone that even had more hope than anyone else, because he knew, I mean, he knew that there is hope out there. And I can't help to think that someday there will be a cure for ALS, so that's even more hopeful. And we all hope for that.
We absolutely do. You know, our vision is a world free of ALS. Mm-hmm. We've been doing this work for over 43 years, and we're not going to stop. Even if there were a cure tomorrow, people would be diagnosed with ALS. It's unfortunately not like polio where there may be a vaccine, because it is a very complex disorder, complex disease. So the Les Turner ALS Foundation has been here for over 40 years. We will continue to be here. This is the community we serve. And frankly, even during a pandemic, ALS doesn't stop, and we're not going to either.
Thank goodness for that. Yeah, and the amazing resources that are available, and all through the Chicago area, including Northwest Indiana and the greater Chicagoland area. So if any of you are out there that knows someone that may need help, assistance, and they've been diagnosed with ALS, we'll put all the information up with the video when it's posted, the website, the phone number you can reach. And you are geographically located in Skokie, is it?
We are, northern suburb of Chicago.
Great. But that is just the office location. You serve all over Chicago land area, Northwest Indiana. So, boy, this has been very nice to have you back on. And after if you'll stay on a little bit after we close out the show, I'd love to talk to you and talk about some other things related to the foundation. So, boy, I can't wait to have you on again. Maybe after the COVID-19, and we can start promoting the Walk for ALS or some of the other neat events that you guys have planned.
Thank you, Bill. I'd really enjoy that. Thanks to all your listeners as well.
Now, thank you. And with that, we'll say goodbye for now.
This episode of The Bill and Callie Show is brought to you by Tiger Plumbing. Whether you need to replace a faucet, overhaul your sump pump, or desludge your drains, call Tiger Plumbing. In today's world, knowing who's at your door is important. Tiger Plumbing sends you your technician's photo, estimated time of arrival, and a little bit about him or her. Hey, Sam likes fishing and camping. Cool.